Patreons. Welcome back to the Spotlight. This is our regular feature where we talk to folks in the pop culture space. This evening, Peter and I are joined by author David Mack. David, good evening to you. How are you?
Hi, guys. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Oh, we're doing awesome. Doing awesome. So glad to have you on board. Thanks for sitting down with us. You have got, now Peter and we're big Star Trek guys. I'm sure it's hard to hide.
I never would have guessed.
Peter always wears the outfit. In my little basement studio, I get too warm. So I usually don't. I'll always slap a badge on though. But you've worked in the shows, and you've worked in novels, and you've worked on comics too. So let's just, and as recently as working on Star Trek Prodigy, which is just if you haven't discovered it as a viewer and a lover of Star Trek, you are missing out. But let's just get rolling with the beginning. How did you become a Trekker?
Grew up with it. Grew up watching syndicated reruns in the 1970s. Kirk, Spock, McCoy, that was my template for what friendship and teamwork looked like. It was my template for what society ought to look like. That was just what I found, and like a duckling imprinting on the first moving thing it sees, I imprinted on Star Trek. And I've followed it ever since, my whole life.
I know just how you feel. Good deal. Good deal. Peter.
All right. So obviously you do writing for a living. So when it comes to creating a story, what's the process that you use? Like, do you start with the idea or the theme and then you move on to story beats? Or is it like characters first, then a scenario, and then see how the characters respond to that scenario? Where, I mean, there's multiple different ways of doing it, but
there is no right answer. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. I approach each story as a unique animal. I deal with it the way it needs to be dealt with. Some I construct from a plot, and then I figure out where the character arcs lie within the plot. Sometimes I start with the notion of a character, or sometimes that's what I'm given. Sometimes I'm hired by the editors with a very general mandate. They don't dictate stories to me so much as they say, for instance, about my novel Firewall, that was approached me as, we want you to write a story about how, when, where, and why 7 of 9 joined the Fenris Rangers. That's all they said. That was the entire work assignment. They said, we'd like you to write that as a novel. Will you take that on? And I said, are you sure I'm the right guy for that? And they said, yeah, we're sure. And I said, okay. So that was my direction. And what I ended up crafting was a queer Bildungsroman, a coming of age tale about an adult queer woman who is only belatedly discovering her identity because her childhood and adolescence have been stolen by the Borg. She's been socialized by the crew of Voyager in a very heteronormative environment. And so the notion that she might be queer just didn't come up. And, for some reason or other. And it's after she goes out, she gets home to the Federation. And it was all character. I mean, character figuring out what was her vulnerability going to be like. What is she, with all of her powers, all of her strength, what is she going to be scared of? And what's going to hurt her emotionally? And so the whole story was driven by the fact that she has to go on this coming of age journey, which, in some respect, everybody goes on in life. That moment when you have to leave home for the first time, you have to strike out, you have to become independent, you have to find a way to make your own way in life, pay your own bills, make your own mark, define yourself as an adult. And that's what that story's about. So that was a very character-driven story.
Yep.
And then sometimes I find a combination. Sometimes I am inspired by a concept or a visual or an action sequence that I think is just too good to let go. And then I find a way to graft it or merge it with character ideas. For instance, my upcoming novel, Ring of Fire, which comes out on October 7th. That's a Strange New Worlds book. It's set during season 3 between episodes 6, The Sailot Who Ate Its Tail, and episode 7, What is Starfleet? So it's falls between.
We literally just talked about those episodes on our show this week, so that's very fresh in our minds.
So basically, this book and a lot of the little sort of details that it draws upon are from those 2 episodes specifically. So if you watch those 2 eps and you pay attention, you'll definitely be able to see where this book fits into season 3. But I started with the notion of something that was from real life. It was a project, a CIA project to try and recover a sunken Russian nuclear submarine.
Yep.
And this was a real thing that they did. They tried to recover it, I think, from the North Pacific, the Bering Sea, somewhere up there.
Yep.
But to cover up the project, because they didn't want people to know what they were doing, they disguised it as basically mining the seabed for oil and minerals. That they made it look like it was a commercial enterprise, and they funded it through Howard Hughes. So it was this incredible, misdirection, and it was all about sort of raising this vessel off the bottom of the sea. Azorian, I think the code name for it was Project Azorian. And so I was inspired by this, and I developed the plot of Ring of Fire based on Project Azorian, but I developed the characters' emotional through lines based on the content of the season 3 episodes that built up to it, and we're going to follow from it. So that was a case where I married my concept to where I knew the characters were going to be in their personal lives.
Awesome.
Neat.
Good deal. Well, speaking of characters and personal lives and something that was just very unexpected, Peter and I just ended talking about the last season of Deep Space Nine. And you were involved in the episode It's Only a Paper Moon. Fantastic. Great character that we loved in Vic Fontaine, and an amazing character in Nog that we watched his journey through the entirety of the series. How did that story come about? Because I marvel at it, even just watching that entire season again. There's not a bad beat in the entire season, and that was a great episode.
Well, I'll try and find the very short version of this story, because that's a long story, which I've told many a time. That story was pitched at the same time around the beginning, like before season 4. My then writing partner, John J. Ordover, and I pitched a bunch of stories. One was bought right away, and it became the season 4 episode Starship Down.
Oh, great episode.
And the core idea for what became It's Only a Paper Moon was sold at the same time, but it's something very different. We sold it under the pitch name Everyone Comes to Quarks, which is a play on the play title Everyone Comes to Ricks, which is the play on which the movie Casablanca is based.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea was we were pitching bottle shows, which is back in the 90s. This was how freelancers worked. You would pitch what's called a bottle show. It uses only the existing sets, the main cast. You try not to do any big special effects numbers. The idea is to work as cheap and as fast as possible. And you use as few sets as possible, because the fewer sets you have to light to shoot the episode, the faster the week goes. Well, John and I structured this pitch like an episode of Cheers. And the idea was that every scene, every moment was supposed to take place in the restaurant, in Quarks. And they loved the pitch. They just didn't know what to do with it. So over time, they would come back to it. They would take notes and say, can we use it like this? Or what if we change that? Or what if we tie it to this? And they would make more notes in the folder and go, no, put it back on the shelf. They did this for 3 years, putting more and more notes into it. So finally, in season 7, they say, well, we got to have sort of a bottle show where Nog is going to deal with his issues after losing his leg. And we just spent a lot of money building these Vic Fontaine sets. We got to find another use for them. What about a bottle show in the Vic Fontaine sets? And they said, well, we've got that bottle show from, Quarks. Could we use that? And they pull it down. They go, well, the bare bones. All right. So they call up me and John. I should say specifically Ronald D. Moore calls up, sets a phone meeting with me and John Ordover. I go into John's office at Pocket Books, and we're sitting down, and we get on the phone with Ron, and Ron tells us, okay, so we're finally going to buy that pitch. We said, great. And he tells us the story. Nog loses his leg at the siege of AR 558. He's going to go into Vic Fontaine's holosuite program and do his own rehab. And we're like, okay, this doesn't bear any similarity to our pitch at all. And he goes, well, this is what we got to after all the years of notes and evolution. So he says, Vic Fontaine, he welcomes him in, and Nick does his therapy, or Nog does his therapy. And then we said, okay, why is Nog doing his therapy in the Vic Fontaine holosuite? And I swear to God, this was Ron's answer. How the hell do I know? It's your story. Thanks,
Okey
Ron.
doke. Yeah, it's good, Ron.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Ron.
that.
But that actually did leave some room for John and I to work. And what we ended up doing was telling a story about post-traumatic stress disorder. And I drew on some of my own experience. When I was 21, I was a passenger in a car that got T-boned in a really bad car accident.
Oh,
And I
God.
spent a number of months basically learning to walk again because of the injuries to my back and my hips. And I was lucky. I got off with the least injury. The rest of the passengers in the car all got fucked up. Sorry, family audience. Got messed up a lot worse than I did.
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
drew on that experience of, suddenly feeling like you've taken for granted when you're young. You feel like you're immortal. You think you're young. Death seems so far away. It seems an impossibility. And then something like that happens. And you realize very quickly, whoa, I am fragile. I am breakable. I could die in an instant. It takes away the illusion of immortality. And it's a very shocking experience when it hits you in the face. And that's what Nog had. Nog
Yeah.
essentially lost his illusion of immortality. He lost the youthful illusion of invincibility. He's now realizing if they can blow my leg off today, they can blow my head off tomorrow. And that's a very, very difficult and sobering thing for a soldier to realize in the middle of a war and then be expected to go back to combat, to go
Right.
back to active duty. And so, again, drawing on, my own sort of experience, that was how that story came about.
Wow. Amazing stuff. That's awesome. Awesome. Peter.
So obviously you've written for the shows a bit and you've done consulting for the shows, but a lot of what you've been writing is the novels. And so when it comes to writing, obviously in a franchise that's existed for a long time, you're dealing with characters that we know how they operate. We've seen them do lots of things. They have lots of characterizations. How do you go about getting in the heads of those characters to help them feel kind of the same when you're writing them?
Well, it helps that I've been watching Star Trek for so long. But one of the things that I do sometimes is if I'm writing a story with, let's say, characters from the original series in the original series era, I've got those soundtracks in my iTunes library. I've got Deep Space Nine soundtracks. I've got Next Gen. I've got, the movie soundtracks. So depending on what era of Star Trek I'm writing in, I have somewhat appropriate music. And for instance, when I was writing a novel based on the J.J. Abrams film, the first one, using that version of the characters for a novel called More Beautiful Than Death, there I had the soundtrack, Michael Giacchino's soundtrack to the original 2009 Star Trek feature film. So I kept that on a loop so that my imagination would stay rooted in the aesthetics of that movie, the performances of those actors, the sounds of those voices, of Zachary Quinto as Spock, of Chris Pine as Kirk, of Simon Pegg as Scotty, that feeling, that universe, Zoe Saldana as Uhura, keeping in mind their dynamic, their energy, the pacing of the movie, the tone, the style of dialogue, keeping that music playing keeps me in that headspace. So that's one of the tricks I have. And then sometimes the other is just as dumb as it sounds. I read the dialogue out loud after I've written it. And I think to myself, if I were watching the show, does that sound like Spock? Does that sound like Data? Would Worf say that? That's too many syllables for Worf. Worf would just get right to the point. Worf would just, let somebody ramble on for 2 minutes, and they would be expecting some, complicated answer, and he would just look at them and say, "No."
Yeah.
That die in ignorance. I could waste some more time with you.
So he won't even have that many syllables. He'll just say, "I am done now," and he would get up and just walk out.
Yep.
Right.
Or things like, after he is asked to take care of Data's cat, and the cat hisses at him and scratches him and draws blood, he says, "I like him. I shall feed him."
Tell him he is a pretty cat. Or when he says to Q, Q says,
I will feed him.
What do I have to do to prove that I'm human? Die. Good
Classic.
stuff.
Classic.
All right.
So just you read the dialogue out loud, and does it sound like them?
That's awesome. That's
Doing
awesome.
the
All right.
accents it helps if you do the accents.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
And
My brother and I
I'm
do
a
that
one.
sometimes when we're making stuff up. So.
Worf is the most fun to do, in my opinion. Data's not bad. All right. Outside of Star Trek, we've been talking about Star Trek. I talked about Star Trek until I dropped dead, but you've been in the mix with some other licensed properties. One of my absolute favorites, and it was I think it was a graphic novel, or maybe it was a book. It's been a while, but Fox's 24. Was that a graphic novel or a book? It was a graphic novel.
That was a novel.
That was a novel. I did read it. See, it was a long time ago.
It was called Rogue. It was based specifically on 24 Live Another Day.
Right.
They commissioned 3 books based on that. One went to me, one went to James Swallow, and one went to Dayton Ward.
Oh, gotcha.
James took the first one, and he did the first 24 hours starting from the end of that season when Jack goes on the run. And it's basically the first 24 hours of Jack on the run as a fugitive.
Yeah.
I picked up several months later, and I did this story of Jack sort of foiling a nuclear threat in the Middle East, dealing with Somali pirates and arms dealers and all kinds of stuff like that. Actually, I won my first Scribe Award for that novel.
Awesome.
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
I was such an enormous fan of that show. I watched it again recently. My wife and I did a short podcast on it. But so my actual question, I'm not just waxing about 24. So dealing with there was 20th Century Fox with the production studio, but dealing with whomever the production house was, and I don't know that off the top of my head, or whomever doled out the assignment or however it worked, how would you kind of contrast that to working with Pocketbooks or Schuster, the Star Trek people? Yeah.
The project was handled through Forge, which is part of Tor Forge, which is an imprint of Macmillan Books.
Okay, there we go.
Tor is a major science fiction publisher. My Dark Arts series was published by Tor. And the licensor, essentially that's the editorial entity, that's the publisher. The licensor who owns the property, who you also need to get approvals from, that's Fox Studios, Fox Television, 2020th Fox Television. And the process was a little different just because I had so much experience at Trek when I came into writing the Trek books. I had already written for the shows. I had a certain degree of credibility. And also, there's sort of just a well-oiled machine of approvals, and things just sort of work a little differently with the Trek books in terms of their relationship with the licensor. The licensor was much more closely involved on 24. They wanted to vet a lot of little details. There were a lot of questions. There was a lot of pushback. I had to negotiate a lot of items. For instance, at one point they gave me an editorial note. This was the licensor saying that they didn't want me to use any brand names of things like vehicles, firearms. And I'm like, do you understand that that is actually not possible? That, otherwise, I've got a car chase. How am I supposed to describe a car chase if I can't tell you who's driving which car?
Right.
I'm constantly saying Jack's car, this car, the red car, the blue car. I'm like, that's infantile. That's juvenile.
Right.
And I said, first of all, and there's no reason you can't use it. There's no reason you can't use brand names in a story in that manner. The James Bond books did it all the time. And then I had to pull the previous book in the 24 series, the one written by James Swallow. And I showed them the book they'd already approved, which was already printed and already on the stands, which was packed page after page with brand names of firearms,
Oh my
cars, restaurants,
Oh.
wines, liquor. I'm like, brand name after brand name after brand name. I go,
Oh my
if
goodness.
James can do it, why can't I? And they went, you win, shut up, go away.
Oh, well, at least they were magnanimous, right? So yeah. Oh my God.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, it's not always sunnier on over the other shore, huh? And as opposed to dealing with the Trek people, because like I said, the Trek people, they get it. You get it. You're established. They know how you do things.
Ultimately, it was fun. I mean, I did
Yeah.
enjoy writing the book. They did actually have a lot of great notes that helped tighten the story and pick up the action. Really, one of the only things they were really, really strict about, you could use certain types of profanity, but you couldn't use, for instance, God damn it. He could say damn it. This is why Jack always says damn it and not God damn it, because
Right.
Fox does not allow blaspheming. You can use a whole variety of other epithets, a whole bunch of other vulgarities are okay, but if you slip into blaspheming, that's not okay with them. They'll
Yep.
draw the line at blaspheming.
Got to be on HBO.
Don't you
for that.
blaspheme! Don't you blaspheme!
I'm still trying to teach Peter about old movies. So that's the Blues Brothers, Peter. Don't you blaspheme now.
I've seen it once. I've seen it once.
Without
It's a
your 4
classic, and
fried
it's still
chickens.
it's still
Without your
and
dry
Coke.
white toast.
Yeah. It still holds up, and you know why it holds up? Because it's got a good heart. Because it's about, at their heart, bad guys who have to go good and do a good thing without doing anything bad along the way. And they actually mess with a lot of really bad people. All the people who they make enemies of, you look at it, in today's light, it's like, yeah, they made all the right enemies: corrupt cops, Nazis, idiots. It's like these are exactly the people you want to say,
Right.
yeah, screw you. I'm going to drive through the bridge and make you jump into the river.
I hate Illinois Nazis. All
I
right.
hate Illinois.
All right, Peter.
We got
Go
half a
for
tank
it.
of gas and 3 packs of cigarettes. Hit it.
Yeah.
It's 108 miles to Chicago.
Sunglasses in the dark. Yeah.
It's at night.
Yeah. I can't remember the line very well.
It's
apparently.
fine. No, it is a wonderful movie, and again, just for the music, I really recommend the director's cut, so you can see the great performance by John Lee Hooker.
Oh
Boom,
God,
boom, boom.
Maxwell Street, yeah.
Oh, so good.
Ray's Music Exchange. As usual, I'll have to accept an IOU. All right, Peter, go for it.
All right. One of the nonfiction works that you wrote that caught my attention was your essay, Official But Not Canon, The Tie-In Writer's Dilemma. So could you tell us a little bit more about that balance? And just random curiosity has there been any change in how that works now compared to before? Because there's more official tie-ins that labeled as such that I've seen now since.
The process at Star Trek has not changed since the beginning. Tie-ins are not canon.
Right.
They are officially licensed works. And the reason, basically, the distinction there is the distinction between them and fan fiction. Fan fiction does not have to go before or meet the approval of the license holder. They don't care whether it conflicts with canon or doesn't conflict with canon. They don't care if the licensor agrees with the characterizations or not, because fan fiction only has to answer to its author and those who read it and enjoy it. And that's fine. But if you're going to write for Star Trek professionally, get paid, get published as an official publication, the work has to go through an approvals process, not just with its editors, but with the people who own and control the intellectual property, the license holders, in this case, CBS Studios Entertainment. So that process has not changed, and their position on what is canon has not changed in something like 40 years, maybe longer, 45 years,
Probably
since
so, yeah.
since around 1980 when Simon and Schuster Pocket Books took over the book line from Bantam. It's pretty much been the same basic rule. If it was live filmed entertainment for television or theatrical film, and it was created by the intellectual property owner of Star Trek, which was CBS or Roddenberry Entertainment, or a number of different entities through the years before it consolidated. If it was produced by the official entity at the time, then it's canon. Now, canon is one of those words that a lot of people in fandom get all spun up about when they really shouldn't even pay attention to it. It doesn't matter. If you don't work for Trek in the licensed materials like the games, the books, the comics, merchandise, if you're not doing that kind of work, there's no reason for you to give a damn about canon. Canon shouldn't mean a damn thing to you. Either you enjoy a story or you don't. You like this episode or you don't. You like that book or you don't. You dug that comic book story or you didn't. Does it fit? Is it part of the continuity? No. Does it matter? No. Did you enjoy it? Yes. That's really all that matters. Canon is one of those things that only those of us who do this for a living, we have to keep track of this because our job is to make sure the things we create are consistent, at least with the prevailing details of canon as it exists at the time we create our tie-in works. That is our job, and we are supposed to know this. And like lawyers, we're supposed to be able to argue when we write an outline. We put in citations for which episode we're referencing, and if we've got a little factoid we're dropping in, we say, this is substantiated by this episode or this detail in this movie, and so on and so forth. So it's like writing a legal brief almost. But we're the only ones who really need to care about canon. Canon does not mean continuity. Canon is not an arbiter of quality. Canon simply means it is part of the body of live filmed entertainment created by the property owner. That's all it means. Is it in continuity with all the other pieces of canon? No. Any individual piece of canon might be in conflict with any number of other pieces of canon, but they're all canon. Which one supersedes which? Which one do I have to pay attention to? In theory, all of them. But sometimes I get a judge's ruling from the license holder and they say, we're assuming for right now that this one is more recent. This one supersedes past canon. Just go with this one. Or sometimes they'll even say, yeah, we can't figure that one out either. Just go with old canon on that one, and we'll just wave it through. I say, you got it, boss.
Yeah, right.
But that's how it is. I mean, so the reason that article came about was because a lot of people have a confusion between official, canon, and continuity. These are three words that don't mean the same thing. Official only means that the license holder has put a stamp of approval on it. They have vetted it, and they've decided that it is consistent with their view of their brand and their continuity. Continuity is all the stuff that happened and whether or not it tracks and fits into a chronology and whether or not anything conflicts. That's continuity. It has nothing to do with quality. Quality is also a whole other word that has nothing to do with any of these other three words. So you could have something that's canon but isn't quality. You could have something that's quality but isn't canon. You have something that's official, it's not canon, but it could be quality. Because these are all four words that mean different things, and they are not synonyms in any way. Fans have to stop thinking of them as synonyms. They are not synonyms. And that's really all there is to say about that.
Bam. What a great thing to wind down on. That's wow, blammo. I love it. This has been incredible. Boom. He's got 2 barrels. This has been awesome. Totally, yeah, clunk. Tell us what you're working on right now. I know you've got a release in October. You already told us, but tell us more.
Well, I'll tell you more. Coming out this coming Monday on September 8th is episode 1 of Star Trek Con, a brand new full cast audio drama with music and effects and all kinds of good stuff, which I wrote with Kirsten Beyer based on an original story by Nicholas Meyer. And that's going to be a whole bunch of fun. That's going to run, I think, for a number of weeks. It's going to have drop new episodes, I think, every Monday until November 3rd. So if I remember correctly,
Awesome.
that's 9. I think that's 9 episodes is what that totals.
That's awesome.
but that's going to be a heck of a thrill ride. I can't tell you anything more about it because if I do, I'm pretty sure there's a sniper just waiting to shoot me through my window. Yeah, they keep pretty close tabs on this. So I can't tell you
Yeah.
anything more. I'm only allowed to say what has already been released, but I can tell you it was a lot of fun to work on. It was one of the great joys is working with my friend Kirsten, who you might recognize Kirsten Byer's name. She was previously a Star Trek novelist who wrote a
Oh,
number
yeah.
of Voyager novels.
Right. I
And she
read them
went on,
all.
and basically back in 2015, she went on to join the team at Secret Hideout. She was part of the development team behind Star Trek Discovery. She has worked on every live action Star Trek production through Secret Hideout since they started. She has
Wow.
been involved in all of them. She was a co-creator on Star Trek Picard. She's currently a co-executive producer on Strange New Worlds. She's working as a co-EP on Starfleet Academy. She is essentially a force of nature.
Oh my
And to have a
gosh.
chance to work with her, where she and I were working together, writing the scripts, developing storylines, basically running our little mini writer's room, I learned so much in a span of months working with her. I feel like I leveled up as a writer because of the experience.
That's
She's
awesome.
she has so much talent, so much experience, and so much knowledge of what she's doing.
Wow.
That to be part of the experience, I felt like I got a whole new perspective on the job. It was incredible.
Wow. Boy, we would love to talk to her, but
It's
a
hard to talk
conversation
to
for another
her.
time.
That has to go through CBS publicity.
I hear you. And we started this segment. One of our very first interviews was Nicholas Meyer, because he had one of his Sherlock Holmes books was coming out. That was almost a year ago. So, but yeah, this has been absolutely incredible. And your work that's coming out next month. Tell me one more time.
All right, it's Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, Ring of Fire. It's a brand new novel. It comes out October 7, which is the week of New York Comic Con. So if you're fans, anybody out there is coming to New York Comic Con, I am planning on being there at the Simon & Schuster booth at some point to sign copies of the brand new hardcover, which will be brand new that week. So look for that. I am working on a new project right now that I can't actually tell you about because the contracts aren't signed and I'm not allowed to say any details or any names or whatever, but it's a fun project and people are going to whoop when they hear it. Beyond that, I've got some spec projects that are floating around the ether looking for good homes, kind of like stray cats. And beyond that, just trying to stay busy, stay out of trouble, and looking forward to people's reactions to Ring of Fire and Con.
Oh, absolutely. Good deal. Where do people find you out there if they want to engage with you on the socials, or you've already told us you got some appearances coming up, but where else can they find you?
Well, you can find me on the web always at my website, davidmack.pro, davidmack.pro. There's always a list of my books, my current titles, my upcoming titles. It's got pretty much my whole bibliography, bio page, press kit for those of you in the media who need stuff. And if you want to find me on social media, you can find my author page on Facebook at facebook.com/thedavidmack, or you can find me on Blue Sky at David Mack.
Awesome. Very good. Well, man, thank you so much for joining us. Patreons, thank you for tuning in. If you're listening to this on our free feed, definitely visit patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Try us out for 7 days for free and listen to us talk to David Mack and all the other wonderful people who have spent time with us. But thank you one more time, and we will see you out there. Can't wait to hear Con.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.